Hey guys, did we get knocked off? Or are we just starting? I hit the go live button and it like knocked us off. Let's see what you guys are up to. Testing. You guys there? We were on. I thought we were on. I was sitting there talking for like half an hour. Oh man, I feel bad for you guys. You guys have been sitting there waiting this whole time. Hello? You guys there? Okay. So you guys didn't hear a word I said this whole time. Unreal. I thought I hit the live button. Okay. So there was nothing. You never been on. Okay, good. So we'll start over. It'll probably come out better the second time anyway. Welcome to the show, everybody. Sorry to keep you guys all waiting. Welcome. So here's what's going on in the Caribbean. And this is why it's so important that if you can, find somewhere safe to live. Some people are born into situations they don't have any control over. And if that's the case, and you're living like under a volcano or something, you might want to start thinking about making changes in your life. One of the quickest things you can do is to get away from city centers. Centers of the city are very dangerous places. They're easily controllable. Well, here's what's going on in the Caribbean. And it appears to me that the elite are trying to draw their line in the sand at this point. And if you don't comply, then that you die. This is the message that they're sending. So these are the people in the Caribbean island of St. Vincent, and they're being refused rescue if they were not vaccinated. Listen.
Nearly 20,000 people are out of their homes on the Caribbean island of St. Vincent after the first volcanic eruption there in more than 40 years. The volcano sent a thick cloud of smoke 20,000 feet into the sky, spewing ash for miles. Cruise ships are evacuating people from the island, but only those vaccinated against COVID.
So there you go. Only if you, let me play that again, because that's just wrong on so many
into
levels.
The sky, spewing ash for miles. Cruise ships are evacuating people from the island, but only those vaccinated against COVID.
So, personal responsibility. We're at a time in history where it's time for that to happen, because the elite are going to play these kinds of games as the months and years go by. This is going to get worse and worse. So, what else do we have today? Well, we're going to get into the latest updates on the UnVCed passports. And surprisingly, some states have banned it, as well as the W to the H to the O and the president himself. Now, I don't understand what's going on here, and obviously they're up to something. I mean, this is a good thing that they're talking about backing off of this because of human rights violations. But isn't it a human rights violation as to what they're doing right now by even making this masks mandatory and stuff like that? See how they start out slow and then they just slowly tighten the screws? Even the W to the H to the O is warning against CV-19 passports. So this is the state of affairs here. So let's talk a little bit about this. What are they doing here? Well, I'm not quite sure yet, but there's a bigger problem looming in the background, and that is the bipartisan agenda between Trump and Biden. They both were talking about it, and that is real ID. This is the federal ID. And in my mind, this is worse because they've already got us. Here are some of the states that are starting to implement this. Pennsylvania, you got Oklahoma. They're setting their deadlines. Oklahoma travelers need to get real ID by October. And this was all happening in the backdrop with all the distractions. They've slowly been tightening down the screws with this federal Real ID Act. Now, why is this so important? Why is this so dangerous? Why is this probably worse than a VC passport? Well, it's because now that the feds are in control of your ID and your ability to use that ID to fly, they don't need to make CV-19 the issue. It could be anything else they throw at us in the future because they have full control over it now. They could come up with CV-22, they could come up with Ebola, whatever they want. If you don't have your real ID, your federal papers, then you're not going to fly. And they can toggle and tighten the screws and flip the switches however they want with the airlines. Why do you think the feds keep bailing out the airlines? It's because they need them to play ball at some point in the future. That's what's going on. And hopefully, guys, at this point can see how the feds and the states keep handing off the ball to one another. They keep tossing the hot potato. They pretend to oppose each other, but at the end of the day, something like this real ID. Look at all these states that are compliant. All these states, some of these are southern states, have already complied and are requiring real ID. The yellow states are extension states, so they just filed extensions. They haven't said they're not going to do it. They're just filing an extension to have more time to do it. And the red states are non-compliant. Notice how all these red states are, most of them are in the northern states. That's because it's much harder to live up here. These are much less populated states. So they don't really care as much. Now, Washington obviously is more populated, but you got Montana, Minnesota, northern Minnesota, Maine, Missouri. Interesting, right? All this is just a shell game. They do the look here while we do something over there. Crazy thing is that Bo Biden doesn't even have to talk about real ID. He's not even mentioning this in the news because the states are doing the work for him. See, at least with Trump, he was talking about it and endorsing it. Notice how this is a bipartisan effort. Even the right-leaning states are complying with this. And once they control your movements, then they have us at our knees. Now, what else could happen with the VC passport that we're not seeing? Well, you got public-private entities that could still enforce some kind of a passport. You guys, it's happening in New York right now. They have the VC passport to go to events, to get in the train system and the subways and all of that. So that's a prime example of something that's not federally mandated, but it's happening on a state level. They don't need a federal mandate. Just like with how masks are still being required in states that have lifted their mandates. So, what do you do if you live in a place like New York? Well, it's easier for a lot of people that live in places like that just to comply and go get the CV passport. Not me. A lot of people, before they would sue a government for violating their civil rights, they'd probably just move out of the state or just comply. They don't need to do a federal mandate. Now, we covered Real ID under Trump and how the cameras at the DMVs were Real ID compliant. Now, this is very, very important. Because even if you refused the Real ID, your picture was still taken with this high-resolution facial recognition enabled camera. High-def camera, which now means that they have your facial fingerprint, which is police booking grade image of your face. What can they do with that? It could be cross-referenced to any camera in the U.S. to find you on any street anywhere in America. Now, this used to be reserved for criminals. They would take high-resolution photos of criminals and, of course, their fingerprints. Well, you have now been put in the category of criminal. You have given up some of your rights of your identity. These would be privacy rights, right? For your federal government now knows another facet of your privacy. So now they know if you've ever had any kind of communicable disease, and now they know exactly what your face looks like every time you go in and get your driver's license updated. And that's the danger of Real ID. Now, in the past, each of these individual states couldn't do that because the cameras were not high quality enough. They also didn't have any kind of, connection or what's the word I'm looking for? Arrangement or agreement with the federal government to disclose their state IDs or state driver's license back to the feds. But now they do. So the DMVs have hooked up with the feds, and they're now sharing the data of your high resolution facial images. And here we've entered the new era of tracking and tracing people, whether or not you accepted Real ID. So they got us. Now, how did we let this happen? It's because we keep thinking that the right and the left are two separate parties fighting against one another, but they're really not. They're working together to slowly and gradually pass the agenda of complete and total domination and control of your lives, to take as many of your freedoms as possible. And if you're still on the fence about this and don't believe this or understand this, let's talk about another bipartisan agenda that both Trump and Biden shared, and those are the red flag laws. You're thinking to yourself, Casey, what are you talking about? Trump's all about the Second Amendment and in our freedoms. You're crazy. No, because if he was, he wouldn't have endorsed the red flag laws. What are red flag laws? Well, first of all, what happened under Trump is he really endorsed this. He said all states should adopt the red flag laws, but he stopped short of federally imposing it because he didn't think he had the power. Or maybe he was working on other things, or maybe they saved him to create the VC, which he did. They thought that was more important because they knew he would just hand the football off to Biden and he would get it done. And that's exactly what he's doing. One of the new executive actions is going to be a national federal red flag law, the same one that Trump endorsed. Are you starting to see what's going on here? Are you starting to see what is going on? Now, I'm not sure the status of this, but this is what is being proposed, a national red flag law. And what is that? It's where, let's say your neighbor, all these last 4 years, you've had, Make America Great Again signs on your lawn, and you've worn the hats, you got the flag on your truck, and now your neighbor can go online, fill out a one-page form with a couple of your snapshots of your social media posts talking about possibly going to the Capitol, and you don't think that Trump should have lost, and it was an illegitimate election, and all these other things. And once they see that, they'll attach those things on there. Maybe a picture of you holding your gun, because a lot of people have pictures like that, right? Just got a new one, and you're going to show it, and can't do that. And now all of a sudden a judge reviews that, and within 24 hours you have armed men at your door taking your means of self-defense. And all it takes is one bad day to say something online that they don't like. You guys, they've already given us the track record of how to do this because they did it at the Capitol. They went on to social media. That's how all these people got arrested. They scrubbed all social media. You think that the federal government's not working with these social media platforms? This is why you got to be careful what you say online, and be careful how you allow them to label you. Don't allow them to label you. Why do you think we don't take on labels here? Why do you think we don't believe in any presidents? We don't believe in any groups. Because the minute you start waving a banner of a certain group, they've already profiled you. They've already found a way to take you down. They've already infiltrated that group. We don't have a group here. What we do here is read between the lines, look for truth. That's it. Now, how long can they take your means of self-defense? Well, until they feel the threat is gone. So, now Biden's taking the football from Trump. He's getting it done because he couldn't get red flag laws done federally, and now Biden's going to pass the national red flag law. Notice how all this is on the heels of more events that have happened, which many of us believe are manufactured. And so now you got to be careful what you say in social media. Unreal. And now you're starting to understand why there's no difference between any of these puppets. I just gave you two very solid examples of how both of these men who pretend to hate each other, to pretend to be on complete other sides of the spectrum, had two things that they both, and it's actually three things, because the VCs were another bipartisan effort that both of them were on board with. So those are three things that they are both on board with. And people are saying, well, Casey, our taxes are going up. Yep, they sure are. But guess what? That's just a carrot. That whole taxing, it's a carrot. So for 4 years, they had taxes go down, right? Why would they do that? That's to get you to go along. Because we're humans. You throw us a couple $100 a year or a couple $1,000 a year, and all of a sudden we think you're God. But really, that's just a trick to get you to go along and to believe the right-left paradigm, to believe that these people are legitimate. And then every 4 years, it just keeps changing, or every 8 years. The people at the top don't care about money. The little $200 or $400 that you save each year, or a couple grand you save each year in taxes, means absolutely nothing to them. It's just a mechanism of manipulation is what it is. They lower and raise the taxes like the Wizard of Oz sitting behind the curtain, dialing the dials up and down to maintain the facade. That's all it is. And we went along with it. Many of us did, because we believed, energy independence and, lower taxes. They went along with the agenda. And the elite simply advanced the football by taking more of our rights and freedoms, red flag laws, national ID, and the VCs that are rolling out all across the nation. Now, hopefully, you guys are starting to understand this. This is very, very important to understand, because we're going to keep getting manipulated if we allow this to continue. Now, I got a couple other stories here showing the agenda, because now they're having what are called breakthrough cases. People that have already been fully VC'd 2 weeks later, all of a sudden, they get it still. Now, this is a setup, because they're going to say either it's a new strain, or they're going to say the VC is only 95% effective. But if it's 95% effective and only 5% get it, the odds of those 5% contracting it in the numbers that they're telling us here, the statistics don't line up. It's already rare enough for you to get this, and even more rare for you to get sick and die from it. And so how are these people testing positive again? Notice how they don't talk about false positives. A lot of these people, they test over and over and over and over again to confirm it. But here they're trying to do damage control, because they're like, still afraid of CV-19 after getting the VC? You're not alone. What is this? Mississippi standing up, 73,000 VC slots and few takers. That's a good thing. People are awake. Now they're saying it's because they have a glut of extra VCs, because they open up the eligibility to people over 16. But at the end of the day, good for Mississippi. And here's one of the final stories I wanted to share with you guys today. Because what they're doing now, they seem to be setting us up for this new variant in schools. Remember I told you in the invasion of the body snatchers, the 1978 version, since not enough of us stood up, now they're going to come for the children. One of the final scenes in that film was a busload of children getting off the bus, and the body snatchers were telling them to go to sleep, to take a nap. And they're like, we're not tired. And that way they could convert them. Well, this is what's happening right now. They're saying there's a new variant, and now they're first going after youth sports, and then they're going to go after the rest. Now, here's what I'm curious to find out is, are you guys hearing any chatter with your children in school? What is going on with your children in school? Are they being quarantined right now on the eve of spring break, or on the aftermath of spring break? Are you getting notices as parents in the mail telling you that there has been some kind of outbreak in their school. And think of the timing of that, because that would mean that they're setting this up. Some of the schools, from the feedback that I've gotten from some of you, are saying that, oh, if you get a test first, then you can come back earlier. Otherwise, you got to wait 2 weeks to come back. So many children are missing the first week back from spring break, which is devastating for a child to have to go through that. So my question is, are you guys seeing anything like that? Is there an uptick in someone saying that someone tested positive in the school and they're trying to make your children stay home and learn and do distance learning? Because this is the true test of all this, is the feedback from all of you guys, because it's straight from you guys, not through some news filter, some skewed news filter. So I'm just curious to hear. And if this does happen within the next couple weeks, then I'd like to hear about it as well. Someone said the sound is off, but it's really not, because you guys are all here. So, all right. So what are you guys hearing here? So basically, I gave an entire show to myself before I realized that I did not hit the live stream button. So I'm a little spent because I just did 2 shows back to back. So apologies, you guys. Okay. All right, let's take a look here. Wow, it's weird. Some people are having sound issues. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cut the stream at this point. I'm not sure what's going on, but I love each and every one of you. And go ahead and put in the comment section if your children have had a stay-at-home order of some kind. And we'd like to see that in the comment section. And then we can get a true idea of what's going on. Because if they're going to start this up right around spring break, then we need to know about it, because this would be a foreshadowing of maybe some kind of VC program in schools or mass testing campaign in schools. And we don't want that. So I love each and every one of you. Have a great day.